Namaskar everyone. In the previous lecture, we studied about the introduction to banking. We studied about the definition of banking in detail, and we also studied about the evolution or the history of Indian banking system. In this particular lecture, the second lecture, we'll be studying about the structure of Indian banking system. I would really recommend all of you who have not gone through the first lecture to please watch the video and then come to this particular lecture too for a better understanding. Now, to start with the second lecture, I would first like to show you this particular chart, which is the hierarchy in which the banks in India falls. So in this particular hierarchy, the bank which lies at the topmost level, or which is the apex bank in the India, is RBI, which is Reserve Bank of India. So this is a bank which has been vested with the powers of making rules and regulations, guidelines for the other banks, all the other banks in the country. We will be going through the definition of all these banks one by one. To start with, I will just summarize this particular chart first, and then we'll start. So RBI is the apex bank. The next level is being covered by the scheduled and the non-scheduled banks. Under the category of the scheduled banks, we have commercial banks, cooperative, small finance, and payment banks. The commercial banks again are 4 types in India: public sector, private sector, foreign, and RRBs. And these public sector banks are either the nationalized banks or the SBI. For the private sector bank, they could be Old Private Sector Bank or the New Private Sector Bank. Old Private Sector Bank here means before 1991, and the New Private Sector Bank here means after 1991. So if I talk about RBI in detail, which is like the apex bank, it was established in 1935. It was established on 1st April 1935 under the RBI Act 1934. It is the apex body of the Indian banking system. The headquarters are in Mumbai. Apex here means the topmost body, or the body with the power of making rules and regulations. It is India's monetary authority. This word monetary is very important. Monetary authority means the authority which makes rules and regulations regarding, or the policies regarding the supply of money in the country, the flow of money and the supply of money in the country. It is the supervisor of the financial system. Yes, it is one of the very important supervisor of the financial system. The other supervisor is SEBI, Security Exchange Board of India. But then RBI again is also a very, very important part, or a very, very important supervisor of the, because it takes care of the supervision of the banking part. So if I talk about the financial institutions in the financial system, there are 2 types. Maybe one is banking and the other is non-banking. So the whole banking part is being taken care by RBI, and the non-banking part is mostly being taken care by SEBI. It is also the issuer of the currency, that we all know that RBI is the organization which is responsible for printing of notes and minting of coins and supplying them to the economy. It is a banker to the bank. So if any of these banks is in need of funds, it can always approach RBI. Similarly, it is a banker to the government. So same ways, if the government is in need of funds, it can always approach RBI. It maintains financial stability. So when it maintains the flow of money in the economy, that simply maintains the financial stability. So it takes care of the value of the currency in the country. So if the value decreases, they will maybe decrease the supply of money, and if the value increases, they may increase the supply of money to stabilize the value. Scheduled banks and non-scheduled banks. So I've come down to the second category here. I've come down to this particular level, scheduled and non-scheduled. So if I talk about the scheduled banks, they are all those banks whose name appear in the Schedule 2 of the RBI Act 1934. So this RBI Act have been divided into various schedules. So if the name of the bank is there in the list, which is in Schedule 2, then the bank is a scheduled bank, otherwise not. So a non-scheduled bank is a bank whose name doesn't appear in the list, Schedule 2 of the RBI Act. Now, to be a part of this particular list, there are certain conditions we need to fulfill, maybe some about the net worth, the profits, the network, etc. So if you fulfill those conditions, you are a part of this list, and if you don't fulfill this condition, you are not a part of list. You don't need to go into the detail of the conditions as such. Then schedule, okay, then there's one more very important thing we need to notice, that at present in India there is no non-scheduled bank. That means if there is a bank in India in today's time, it is definitely listed in Schedule 2 of the RBI Act 1934. Scheduled banks, because there is no non-scheduled banks, we won't be talking about them. Scheduled banks, if I talk about, they are again divided into two, commercial and cooperative. Now to talk about the commercial banks, they are basically the banks whose objective is very, very clear. They know a very clear objective of making profits. So commercial here means at a large scale, and their whole sole objective is making profits, doing banking business. So they are here for doing business of banking. They are here for earning profits, and of course in a legal manner, but then here for earning profits. So they lend money to somebody, they'll take interest on that and earn profits out of it. So they are the banks mainly which deal with the commercial banking operations like acceptance of deposits and granting of loans to the public. They are again of four types: public sector bank, private sector bank, regional rural bank and foreign banks. So I am coming down to the categorization of commercial banks only. So I am basically talking about scheduled banks. Under that I am talking about particularly about commercial banks, and under the commercial bank also I am talking about the public sector banks. So public sector bank simply means are owned and controlled by the government. So all your nationalized banks, your state bank and the group, they are all the regional rural bank, they all come under the category of regional rural banks. Sorry, the public sector banks. I'm so sorry. This asterisk here, please, we need to really remember, this is a very important note, that at present I have written here State Bank of India and its subsidiaries, but at present there are no subsidiaries of State Bank of India. They have all been merged back to SBI. So basically public sector bank means they are owned by the government or public at large. Then private sector bank here means the public sector bank here is SBI plus the nationalized banks. So we have this list of all the nationalized banks. Please remember everyone that we had 19 nationalized banks before January 2020. But then few of them have been merged to the other bigger banks, and now the number at present is 11. We all remember that previously there were 20. In 1969 14 banks were nationalized, and then 1980 6 banks were nationalized. So the number was total 20, but then in 1993 one of the bank, the New Bank of India, was merged back to Punjab National Bank. So from 1993 till to 2019 we had 19 nationalized banks, but then in January 2020 some of these banks have been merged back to the other bigger banks, and now the number is 11. Private sector bank. These banks are owned and controlled by private institutions or individuals and not by the government. That is very easy to understand, that the ownership is in the private hands. Example is South Indian Bank, ICICI, HDFC, Axis Bank, etc. This is the list of the old private sector bank and the new private sector bank. Old year means before 1991 and new year means after 1991. Maybe they were formed beforehand, but then they were privatized after the 1991, or maybe they were a development financial institution like HDFC and ICICI before the 1991, but then they were given the category, they were given the authority to work as a bank after 1991. Regional rural banks. They were established by the Regional Rural Bank Act 1976 with a view to satisfy banking facilities and credit needs of the rural people. So these regional rural banks were formed in 1976 under an act particularly. And why they were formed? As the name suggests, they were formed to cater to the needs, banking needs of the rural people. Because in India, unorganized sector was prevailing at a very large extent at that point of time. So to bring people under the organized sector, under the formal sector, these particular steps were taken. So RRBs were specifically formed to cover the people in the rural areas. Now this second point is very important, the capital share point. The capital share of whatever capital is being required to form an RRB is being contributed by three entities. The central bank, 50% of it is given by central bank, 15% of it is given by the respective state government wherever the bank is, the RRB is, and 35% is given by scheduled bank, or we can also say any sponsor bank. So any one big scheduled bank can become a caretaker of the RRB, and then they can contribute 35% of the capital. Again, the objective here is to provide banking or credit facilities to the lower income group or the marginal farmers, etc. The examples are Andhra Pradesh Grameen Vikas Bank, etc. Foreign banks. These banks are formed. Now I have come down to the category of I'm talking about the commercial banks, right? So in commercial banks, I've talked about the private sector bank, the public sector banks, the RRBs, and I'm talking about the foreign banks. So these banks are formed and registered in foreign countries and have their head offices in foreign country. Very, very easy to understand that, you know, they have been formed in some foreign country, they have their ownership there, they have their headquarters there in some other country, but then they have branches in India. They are all known as foreign banks. So the examples of foreign banks are Yes Bank, Citibank, HSBC, Deutsche, etc. Now I have come down to the second category of the scheduled bank, cooperative banks. So I've talked about the commercial bank as a whole. I've talked about the commercial bank as a whole. And all the categories I've discussed. The commercial bank here, public sector bank, private sector bank, foreign banks and RRBs. I've also talked about the nationalized banks, SBI, old and new private sector bank. Now I've come down to the second category here. So cooperative bank basically is formed by the cooperation of few individuals or few firms basically. So they are maybe, you know, formed by the individuals of a particular community or a particular area to cater to the need of that particular community or that particular area. So these are the banks where cooperative societies that are formed at the state or the district level. So cooperative societies are formed by the cooperation of these people, and then these cooperative societies, they own more than 51% of their share in these banks, these cooperative banks, and that is why they are known as cooperative banks. Again, the purpose or the objective is to provide services to that particular community or to that particular area or the underprivileged area, the people. Urban cooperative banks, as the name suggests, they lie in the, or they are located in the urban or the semi-urban areas, and that is why they are known as urban cooperative bank. State cooperative bank, as the name suggests, is they are basically, you know, the unity, or maybe they are formed by the federation of the district cooperative banks. So all the district cooperative bank, they come together to form a state cooperative bank. Example is Kerala State Cooperative Bank, Odisha State Cooperative Bank, etc. The example of the urban cooperative bank is Maharashtra State Apex Cooperative Bank, etc. Small finance bank. So now I've come down to the third category of the scheduled banks, small finance bank. These are a bit, you might have not heard much about them, because this and the payment bank, these two categories are relatively new in the Indian banking system, but then they've become a very, very important part in expansion of Indian banking. They've become a very important part in increasing the financial inclusion. So these are basically formed to cater to the needs of the unprivileged section through basic banking activities of lending and deposits. So at present there are 10 small finance banks. The list is as below. AU Small Finance Bank, you all must be knowing about it, Janlakshmi Small Finance Bank, etc. Lastly, the payment banks, which is like the fourth category of the scheduled banks. We all know about Paytm, we all know about Amazon Pay. So these are basically the banks which do all the functions of a normal bank except granting of loans. So their function is limited. So a payment bank is like any other bank but operating on a smaller scale without involving any credit risk. In simple words, it can carry out most banking operations but can't advance loans or issue credit cards. It can accept demand deposits up to 1 lakh. So the limit of accepting deposit is also there, is up to 1 lakh. And they are not allowed to grant loans. Paytm has started giving some overdraft sort of thing, some small amount of loans, but then again that is being restricted to a very, very small amount. They are also allowed to do these remittance services, which is like transfer services, transfer of payments, mobile payments, purchases, and other banking services like giving ATM, debit cards, third-party fund transfers, net banking, etc. So they are allowed to do all these things, but they are not allowed. What they are not allowed to do is to grant loans to the people. And even if they are allowed to a very, very small extent. So they are authorized to open a current and saving account but can't issue a credit card to the customers. That is again important. So the main objective is financial inclusion. So financial inclusion means covering each and every individual of the society, be it unprivileged or privileged, anyone, covering everybody in the banking system and specifically the underprivileged ones. So these low income households, unorganized sector, to cover that particular area, these particular banks have been formed. This is the list of the payment banks. These are 6. Previously 11 banks were given the license to act as a payment bank, but at present only 6 are being active. Thank you so much. Please go through the chart once again. I would really recommend you to go through the chart once again and understand the hierarchy. Once you are through with the hierarchy of at which level which particular bank lies, it will be very easy for you to understand the concept. In the coming lectures, we'll be studying about the functions of bank, we'll be studying about the RBI in detail, credit creation function, etc. So please watch the coming videos as well. Thank you.